We will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Carla, do you mind doing roll call?
Commissioner Sparks,
Present.
Commissioner Berman,
Here.
Commissioner Moffett, Vice Chair Gilardi,
Here.
Chair Long.
Here. And land acknowledgement. The city of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the coastal Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on. And the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I get a motion for the approval of minutes from the February 2nd meeting?
I motion to approve.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 That motion passes. Director Hausch, any changes to the agenda?
No changes this evening?
Okay. And public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the commission on any items listed on the matters at hand or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. Carla, do we have any Zoom attendees?
Thank you, Chair Long. Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon, or if you're dialing in, dial *9. And Chair Long, there's no public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Moving on to matters at hand. The first one is the Santero Way and Transit-Oriented Communities Parcel-Specific Rezoning Ordinance.
Thank you, Chair Long. Commissioners, this item, just before we get started, it's essentially a cleanup item on two outstanding issues, and at the time of the publication of the packet, ABAG MTC had a meeting scheduled to talk about implementation of TOC and OBAG funding, so I'm going to give kind of some late-breaking information that was not in your packet, but I will talk about it in the presentation, so just stay tuned. And we'll just get into the presentation, so the next slide. The item before the commission this evening is an ordinance to rezone the specific parcels in the TOC and Santero Way specific plan to the transit-oriented communities and Santero Way zoning districts. Commission will recall the ordinance created the districts. We have a specific plan for the Santero Way neighborhood. Staff did not include the parcel-specific list in the ordinance that the commission recommended and the council ultimately passed. So this is kind of a housekeeping item to identify parcel by parcel all the properties that are changing to those districts. And then separately, the city council actually provided some input to remove one parcel, which we'll talk about a little bit, and then also there was some unanswered questions regarding how to respond to concerns about the condo conversion elements of the TOC. So that's back before the commission, and then some of the late-breaking information from ABAG MTC may influence the commission's consideration and recommendation. So we'll talk about that. The next slide. Just have a summary of the background. The commission will, I remember, and there's a lot of background in the staff report, that in the summer of 2023, the city initiated the Santero Way specific plan update. Shortly after this, ABAG MTC issued the first TOC, or Transit-Oriented Communities Policy Guidance, and that said if cities are not compliant, then it would affect their eligibility for the One Bay Area grant money. That's the main grant funding source that the city uses to do a lot of our infrastructure projects, so maintain our roads. So that was very important. In response to this, in April of 2024, the city expanded the CEQA analysis of the Santero Way specific plan to include all of the TOC eligible parcels, basically make sure that we could rezone those to TOC if the council and the commission recommended and provided that direction. And then on January 13th, the commission on the recommendation the council on the recommendation from the Planning Commission, adopted the Santero Way specific plan and transit-oriented communities rezoning ordinance. But as I talked about, it didn't include the specific parcel list, and it didn't fully meet one of the preservation policies due to some of the language just that staff, I made a mistake, it didn't include all the language. And so we're here tonight to talk about that. And in addition, on February 25th, just last Thursday, MTC voted to actually separate transit-oriented communities compliance from the One Bay Area grant funding. Yeah. So they actually punted. Well, anyway, we'll talk about it. So the next slide. As we've talked about tonight, we're going to include all of the parcels. And then also talk about the condominium conversion ordinance. And then we got some input from developers on that. And so we just want to make sure we have a fully informed discussion. And so staff will share that with you. The next slide highlights all the specific parcels that are being included. So yeah, the yellow there are the Santero Way specific plan proposed parcels. And then the red are the transit-oriented communities proposed parcels. And you'll see kind of all the ones that are contiguous, yellow and red, are the Santero Way specific plan itself. So that's the specific plan we did. And then the red parcels heading west on East Cotati Avenue are the other parcels that were added because they're within that half-mile radius. The commission will remember everything within a half mile. And then one more slide will highlight that the Oliver's parcel was excluded by the city council because they had concerns that upzoning the Oliver's parcel to have so much residential development could motivate redevelopment of the site in a way that would essentially impact some of the commercial uses there, and there's a big concern about that. And so the council directed staff to remove that parcel from the TOC rezoning. So that is remaining Cotati, East Cotati, Commercial East Cotati Avenue is the zoning district.
Quick question on those kind of standalone red parcels there, like the one next to Oliver's and the one across the street. Can you explain again why those were chosen to be rezoned? Because looking at the map, it looks kind of random, so I'm sure there's a reason for it. But
so TOC applies to all parcels within a half-mile radius of the SMART station, except existing parcels that are developed with residential uses can be excluded from them.
okay.
The commission will recall East Cotati Avenue is kind of a really interesting mix of residential and commercial uses, and sometimes not necessarily on the same lot, but you might pass through a commercial parcel to access some of these unique kind of mini neighborhoods behind them. And so that's how we got to this, is those are essentially the commercial properties that are not developed with a residential parcel or residential use.
Okay.
Along East Cotati Avenue within that half-mile radius.
Okay.
There is one exception, and it's one of the lots on the north side of East Cotati Avenue on the far edge of it, essentially across from Oliver's. One of those is developed with a single-family home, but the owners have told us that they're interested in redeveloping it, and it was already zoned commercial, so they were in support of including it in the TOC policy, and they actually have been checking in with us along the way to make sure that it stayed in.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. Yeah, and I'm sure we talked about it a while back, but
It's been a lot of information and over time, yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, next slide. So the condominium conversion discussion. So the TOC policy, and this is, you'll recall that it's related to the 3 Ps of housing, so production, preservation, and protection of tenants. One of the, I believe it's the preservation elements, requires that city have a condominium conversion ordinance that if a developer wants to convert apartments into condominiums and sell them, that they have to replace all of those apartment units that they're now proposing to sell with a separate apartment building, so a 1-to-1 ratio of replacement. The ordinance proposed to include that language as a requirement. We heard from some developers that identified that lenders may have a concern over that because the way that housing financing works is, people put in some of their own money, but primarily borrow the money to build a new apartment building. And the banks are, they have certain rules in place in order to loan that money. And one of those is different ways that they would deal with having to foreclose on that property. So you can imagine you're a developer, you borrow a large chunk of money to build an apartment building, you get it rented out. For some reason, you stop making your payments, you're no longer able to do that. The bank has to repossess it. So now a bank owns an apartment building. They're not in the business of being a landlord. They want every opportunity possible to be able to then sell that building to recoup their loan and get out of the landlord business. That's just how banks think. They're very conservative. One of the options that would be available to them would be the condominium conversion. So the idea is maybe the apartment market goes very bad. There's not a lot of people renting. The developer can't make their loans because there's not enough tenants in their building. The bank has to repossess it. Then the bank is like, no, I can't even get enough tenants in here. Obviously, nobody could cover this cost. I want to convert this building into condominiums and sell them as another way to get our investment back, to repay our loan. The requirement that would limit the ability to convert it to a condominium without replacing those units is concerning to that bank because they're like, well, we actually now have to build twice as many units and we're just trying to get our money back out of our loan. So we heard that having that 1-to-1 replacement could be problematic for lending in the TOC, which the whole point of it is to get more homes built. So on packet page 15 is the red line version of the condominium conversion ordinance. Cotati actually has a very strong condominium conversion ordinance already. There's a lot of protections. You'll see there's 3 pages of requirements. There's relocation assistance already required for the current tenants. There's a full-on study that's required, a housing stock assessment that shows vacancy rates, rental rates, all these things that somebody wanting to convert apartments into condominiums would have to do already under today's current rules. We're already fairly protective of our apartments, not wanting them to be easily converted. And if somebody proposes to convert them, we make sure that we have a lot of information to make that decision, and that the current tenants are provided the opportunity to given some relocation assistance. They have a right of first refusal, I believe. I'm trying to find that right now. Yeah, but so there's a lot of kind of protections in there. The red writing on page 15 is the 1-to-1 replacement requirement that staff put into the ordinance to meet the TOC policy requirement from ABAG MTC. The blue writing is saying that the condominium conversion, the 1-to-1 ratio would only apply to buildings that are basically in existence as of January 1st. A new building being built after January 1st of 2026 would not be required to have that same 1-to-1 ratio. So the idea there is it protects current existing apartment homes, tenants living in them, but then also provides a mechanism for banks to feel comfortable loaning to future development, which we're trying to get more homes built in Cotati. So that was staff's way to try to address both issues. That being said, it may be seen by ABAG MTC as not being fully compliant, right? Because it doesn't apply to all units in the city. They're really trying to push this as a tenant protection ordinance or element of the ordinance, so it may just not be fully compliant with that aspect of TOC. Stepping back, because ABAG MTC told us we actually don't have to be compliant now until July 1st, 2027, maybe we just don't want to make any changes to our ordinance. So the red or the blue can stay out. We can wait to see what our ultimate score is, because staff has already submitted all the work we've done. So we're going to see where we fall with TOC compliance. We've already done so much that we may actually be pretty compliant anyway. And then if we need to, we can come back and revisit this and we can decide how to do it. So that's an aspect that wasn't included in the packet because staff was not anticipating that they would fully separate the grant money from compliance, because they've been kind of telling us for 2 years now how important it's going to be.
So if we are not compliant, do we have a second chance to put this in?
Yes, because
And
we
What's
have,
the timeline for that?
so the timeline, it was supposed to be around April or May of 2026. They have now punted till July 1st, 2027 for compliance at all. And they've pulled back getting your grant money. You're not even required to be compliant anymore. They created a separate incentive pot and said, for jurisdictions that are compliant, you'll get access to this extra money. So that's how they chose to do it. Essentially, what they were hearing from a lot of jurisdictions that many cities had made no efforts towards TOC, and they didn't have the resources to make any of those efforts. And so they were really worried about not getting any money to fix their roads. And the commission was they responded to that concern.
So now if you are compliant, you'd potentially get more money, but you're not like cut out altogether?
Correct.
And remind me, the compliance, it's not like an all or nothing thing, it's like a range, right? Like you said, we get a score.
Yeah, so now though, to get the, before it was gonna be like 0 to 100, if you're less than 40, then you're not compliant. 40 to 85 is partially compliant, and then 85 plus is fully. They've
Okay.
now gotten rid of everything below 85, and it's either you're fully compliant and you get the
That extra
incentive money, or not, and
Oh,
you get
okay.
the just normal one barrier grant money.
Okay, so it does behoove us to be fully compliant, but we don't know what our score is yet. For all we know, we could already be 85,
Correct,
even without this.
correct.
Okay,
And one other kind of wrinkle is that, removing the Oliver's parcel, that was the biggest parcel in the whole area. It gave us a ding on our density. Even though all those other parcels are up zoned to the density, they look at it as an average, and we got a negative on that. So staff has submitted all the information. So in theory, we will get a score in the relatively near term, and we can respond to that however we see fit. But we don't have to worry about not getting grant money in this cycle,
This year,
which was
okay.
the big push.
yeah, that's nice. I had a question, but I can't remember what it was, sorry. What else?
So if we do nothing, how does that address the developer's concerns as far as the issues with funding?
So we don't currently, although we have a lot of protections for our current tenants, we don't have that one-to-one replacement ratio as a requirement. So we think that it would be status quo and it shouldn't be an impact. Yeah.
This is another question that just came up. Have we confirmed that with any lenders, or are we just taking the developer's word for it?
I have not confirmed that with lenders, although I have heard that many times, when a bank repossesses an asset, their number one priority is to get rid of that
it,
asset. And that was a common theme during the 2008 recession.
Yeah, and I can see, I worked for banks for a lot of my career, and I can't see a bank being like, okay, yeah, we'll build another apartment building to get rid of this foreclosure that we have in our books now, yeah.
Yeah, and if you imagine kind of the pressures that these policies are trying to address Bay Area wide, in some of these very, very affluent communities, there's some apartment buildings that they were built a long time ago. They're kind of a prime opportunity for selling, converting to individual townhomes or condos and selling at a high return. And so it's trying to respond to that. And then also making sure that tenants are protected with relocation, all that, which we have already got. So we're pretty compliant with some of the direction anyway.
Is it usual to put in our packet what the developers are concerned about? Or is it usual for the developers to come to the meeting and speak for themselves?
So it's very common for staff to do research on any policy change. I mean, that's what we do when we're bringing policy. We research the whole gamut, both sides of it. How we heard about this was developers in the room the night of the council presentation on the January 13th adoption night. There were a team of folks in the room who have been tracking this the whole time, and it was a last-minute addition by staff because staff made a mistake and missed including that in the ordinance as we were tracking through. And so it was a last-minute change that nobody was really aware of. We talked about it with the council. The attorneys pointed out that we can't include it even if we wanted to because the commission hadn't looked at it yet. It wasn't part of the ordinance. And then the developer said, by the way, this is a potential challenge with financing that you need to be aware of. So that's how it came up. But it's very common for staff to provide multiple perspectives in your packets. And then we'll just go there. I think there's one more slide. So this is just getting to that question about the TOC score. And I apologize, you can't see the bottom. ABAG has been kind of shifting on how to comply, and I think the commission even heard some of that as staff was presenting from the workshop to the public hearing. They basically had been trying to figure it out themselves along the way. And so the bottom aspect of this slide, which I apologize you can't see it there, but it basically shows on the far right, you're eligible for all OBAG 4 funds plus the TOC set aside, so that speaks to that incentive. They had been talking about how to do this because they were trying to push jurisdictions to implement TOC, and they were trying to figure out the best way to do it. So there had been discussions around, should we say you need it for any grant money or create this incentive pool? And so they had kind of gone back and forth. And even though this slide is from middle of last year, it even talks about that, they were still undecided, but they were pushing and pushing for full compliance. And then at the last minute, what I would describe as the last minute, the board, when they were voting to formalize, they listened to the input from the jurisdictions who hadn't been able to make any headway. So we'll go to the next slide. And it's the recommendation that the Planning Commission consider the proposed map and policy changes to finalize implementation of the TOC policy, provide input and direction, and you'll be making a recommendation to the City Council regarding their adoption of an ordinance.
All right, thank you, Director Hausch. Carla, can we go to the Zoom attendees to see if there's any public comment at this time?
Thank you, Chair Long. If you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon or dial *9. And Chair Long, there's no public comment at this time.
Thanks. And I'll just open it back up to the commission for any additional questions for Director Hausch.
My questions got answered.
Well, I'm concerned about developers wanting to take advantage and condoize their units. And I want to be sure that we're cognizant of it and protective of our residents. And I think that clearly we're protective of the mobile home parks, but we need to be vigilant, I believe. There's money to be made, and yeah, we need to be concerned about our residents. That's always my first concern.
Okay. So I'm just kind of thinking about your recommendation. Do we need to maybe adjust our motion in order to address kind of the changes with the red and the blue and kind of how
Yeah.
that has been changed.
Yeah, what I would appreciate hearing from the commission is just, I guess the idea between just kind of not making any more changes to the condo conversion ordinance. It's already got a lot of protections in it. We could just sit with it, see what our score is, and then decide how we want to respond, whether we want to respond and implement the policy, whether we want to implement the policy and do something to address the financing concern that the developers raised. Or whether the commission thinks that it's important to make a change now. And after the meeting on Thursday, there is no pressure. There's no timeline which we were trying to meet through this whole effort. And so the urgency is gone. So staff, in now having this hindsight from a couple extra days, would recommend, and the recommendation would be likely to not make any more changes. Let's see where our score is and then decide. Because the ding from the density, the ding on our score from the density, I don't know how intense or, how significant or insignificant that's going to be. And so if it's very significant, then maybe we need to make up for it by being fully compliant in these other ways. So I think giving ourselves some more time to be fully informed would likely be the staff recommendation now.
Got it. And I know Ed already kind of asked this question, but we will have a chance to revise our submittal to them once we get our score back. Can you kind of walk me through that again, how that would work?
Yeah, so if the, as of right now, the ordinance is what it is and it's submitted.
Okay.
If we get a score that we like, staff's likely to not come back with anything unless the council puts it in our work plan for next year, like, hey, we still want to make changes. If we get a score that isn't that supportive of us, accessing those additional funds, and as we look for maybe at our project list and our budget for those, then we can kind of have an informed discussion about, and it's worth going for those extra incentive dollars because there's a shortfall or there's a need. And that would be a separate ordinance. It would be the exact same process. So, public hearing with the planning commission, recommendation, 2 readings with the city council at public hearings, all of that.
Okay. I guess what I don't understand is it just kind of, you can resubmit that policy at any time to ABAG and they'll readjust your score? Is it like an annual thing? Once we get that score, how do we resubmit to get that?
That's a good question. So they have it's a portal that you upload all of your information into, and then they have different teams reviewing different sections of it because you imagine it's the whole Bay Area, and so we have the benefit of just being very early.
Okay.
Because we were out in front of this, because we started doing this work, with the Santero Way specific plan. We got a grant from them, so it funded a lot of the work. So we were able to kind of get ahead of it, which is allowing us to get feedback on a rotating basis. So now we're going to get their feedback significantly before the deadline.
Got it.
So it would give us opportunity to make adjustments.
Okay. Appreciate it. Do we have a motion at this time? There's no further questions.
Just one clarifying question. So the incentive money, is that starting, you said that's starting 2027?
Correct.
So even if it came back hypothetically that our score is 85, we still wouldn't be able to get that incentive money until next year?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Personally, I agree with Shelley, like the January 1st, 2026, cutoff sounds like, oh, that's, not that big of a deal right now, but 20 years from now, what is that impact going to have on the residents of Cotati, So I'm in favor of not doing anything and just giving us more time to research, giving us more time to see what comes back from OBAG and see if they make any other changes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially since you mentioned that having that little caveat in there would likely ding our compliance anyway, right? So it's not gonna give us that much of a lift. So that's my thought.
Any other comments from commissioners? No? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we do not include any changes in the current rezoning ordinance for the Santero Way and transit-oriented communities parcel, specific rezoning ordinance.
Second.
A second.
Thank you. Carla, do you mind taking a vote?
Commissioner Sparks? Aye. Commissioner Berman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gilardi?
Yes?
Chair Long?
Aye. And the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Director House.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 8B. This is the Housing Element Annual Progress Report, and it's going to be presented by Planning Technician Pema Sherpa. And I'll just remind the commission that the format that staff is required to complete is a state-provided format, so our apologies for the spreadsheet with the tiny font, but we have to fill out the APR in the way that the state provides us. And this is just a report on all of our housing activities over the last year. That's mandated to be submitted by April 1st every year. It has to go to the city council. We also provide it to the planning commission. And then we have historically, because there's been so much changes to the state law, included a summary of the legislation that passed that's affecting housing development in the community. And we have a brief summary of that. We have not had a lot of chance to research that, so if there's detailed questions on how we're going to do that, we may not be able to, but we're happy to discuss, and we're going to provide a summary of that as a part of the report. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Sherpa.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Pema Sherpa. I'm a planning technician with the City of Cotati, and today I'm here to present the Housing Element Annual Progress Report. Next slide, please. As Noah said, housing element is a required element of the general plan, and it is currently now the 8th year update cycle, and the City of Cotati recently updated its housing element in 2023. We're currently right now in 8th cycle, so it spans from 2023 to 2031. The annual progress report has been required from the state since 1980, and we also need a 8th year update cycle for housing element as well. The city also has to submit the APR to Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, and Office of Planning and Research, also known as OPR. Housing element usually provides an analysis of community housing needs for all income levels and identifies recommendation to respond to and provide for those housing needs. This APR details the City of Cotati adopted housing element program throughout the past year and the progress in implementing those programs listed in the housing element. Furthermore, the APR also demonstrates progress towards the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA, provided by ABAC MTC, which can be found on Table B on the attachment. Next slide, please. Like we said before, there are some updates to the 2025 APR form, and usually there are a few changes every year, but this year we do have pretty major changes to the 2025 APR form that we would like to highlight to planning commissioners. First, we have the expanded income categories. So previously we only had very low, moderate, and market rate for all income level, but with this new update to the APR form, we have 2 new categories, acutely low and extremely low income categories. So previously, all units that were affordable to household making under 50% of the area median income would be reported in the APR as very low income. But with these new categories, any units that are affordable to household making up to 50% of area median income will be reported as acutely low income, and any units affordable to household making above 15% of area median income and up to 30% of the area median will be reported as extremely low income. We also have a new table with the APR, so it's called Table L. So any new sites in jurisdiction have been newly designated within the reporting year on either a national, state, or local register of historical places is now required to report this site and their information in this new table. This indication can be also made on Table A and A2 in the housing APR form. We also have opportunity area tracking, and this requires no effort from any jurisdiction at all. HCD provides and tracks internal data from all the reporting that we do as a jurisdiction and reports it to the APR dashboard that will be available in June 2026 to the public as well. We also have enhanced housing element program reporting, especially on Table D. We have new columns. So we have new quantified outcomes category that we do need to fill out as we fill out the implementation progress of the housing element. We also have supporting documents that we need to link as well for new Table D as well. Next slide. So as I said before, we're currently now on 6th cycle of RHNA, which spans from 2023 to 2031. As you can see on the slide, we do have 234 units that have been allocated through different income level for City of Cotati. So 60 on very low, 34 low, 39 on moderate, and 101 on market rate. So these are the designated RHNA units that have been assigned to this city. This usually is done by HCD. They usually derive this from population demographics and also use formula that are based from each region and each council of government database as well. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to point out the summary from 2024 housing APR. So as you can see, 3 new ADUs were built in 2024, 10 building permits were issued. They did have construction underway as well. 338 units were entitled in 2024, and 36 units were proposed in development application in 2024. This just gives a summary of what City of Cotati has done on last 2024 year. Next slide, please. So this is the summary for this last year, for 2025. We have 7 building permits that were applied for the City of Cotati. 3 building permits were issued. 2 new ADUs were constructed in 2025 as well. And we had 230 units that were entitled by the City of Cotati. Projects on the pipeline are also Lund Hill lots with approximately 12 units that will be built. Next slide, please. This is just a comprehensive breakdown of projected residential development, and I just wanted to show this slide because even though these will not contribute to RHNA because they do not have building permits that have been issued, these will be in the projected pipeline for RHNA allocation. So all of these are entitled units that have been approved by the City of Cotati in past years. The green highlighted one are the entitled units that have been approved by the city in this year, and Lund Hill lot is still in its decision point as well.
Yeah, I just want to chime in here. So, we're seeing a pretty big disparity between what's being approved or entitled by the city and then what's getting built. And so I just want to show, the city, I feel like, is doing everything we can, and this is the Planning Commission and City Council have the decision makers to approve projects. It's just unfortunately various factors on each of them, they haven't really moved into construction. We do think and anticipate that we're likely to see Redwood Row getting into construction this year, which will help us make a big kind of dent towards RHNA, because just because the city approves it, until it gets to a building permit, we don't get to count it in our RHNA. So just want to highlight that. So it tracks issued and occupancy granted, so and finalized, but issued lets us count it towards RHNA.
Next slide, please. And this is a total summary of the 2025 units that have been entitled and housing application in different permit processing stages. For this year, we only have 3 building permits that have been issued that will count towards the RHNA allocation for City of Cotati. Next slide, please. So staff also likes to use the APR presentation as an opportunity to provide updates on the housing legislation, as Noah said before. The slides and the legislation updates that are in the slides are some of the highlights that we wanted to present to the Planning Commission, and I would wanna bring Noah to present these to the commissions.
Yeah, just really briefly, as I mentioned, we haven't had a time to do a deep dive in with these. We haven't worked with the city attorney on how we're going to implement them. But AB 2253 applies to new building permits for projects under 10 units, and it essentially lets the applicants hire a third-party plan reviewer if the city's not meeting timelines. So again, it's kind of in the theme of the state feeling like cities aren't doing their part. We're the holdup in some instances, and so they can hire a third-party professional to do their plan review if the city does not perform and meet certain timeline expectations. I will say, City of Cotati consistently meets all the timeline expectations in this legislation, but it is something kind of in the theme of how the state has been viewing local jurisdictions and trying to figure out different ways to kind of keep things moving for the folks who can't meet the timelines that are in this legislation. SB 358 is looking at impact fees that get charged to commercial development. And so as the commission will recall, folks who build new residential units or new commercial projects are required to pay impact fees as a portion of their building permit or on top of their building permit to help offset the cost of, so you build a new house, there's gonna be new people living there, the city has to provide new parks for them, new roads, all those things. We charge an upfront fee to each new home that gets built to help us cover the cost of building new parks down the road. Same thing for commercial uses. And you can imagine the commercial uses primarily have traffic impact fees. And so SB 358 actually requires cities to reduce our traffic impact fees for commercial development when it is within half a mile, so using that same TOC boundary, of 3 specific amenities. And there's a list of those amenities, but they include grocery stores, parks, community centers, medical clinics, hospitals, libraries, et cetera, and schools. So basically, if you're within 3 of your main things that you do, then we have to reduce the essentially the traffic fees that we can charge those projects. And the idea is, you know, when you go to the store, you're also gonna, you know, do multiple trips when you leave your house. And so in theory, you have reduced traffic. And so therefore, there's reduced needs for the city to mitigate those impacts from that project. So that's the idea. AB 507 has some incentives to streamline what's called adaptive reuse. So what that means is essentially reusing an existing building to do something different with it. We are seeing some of that happening in kind of some of the office development that's, you know, low-level, small office. While the office market is starting to pick back up, those older office buildings aren't really in demand as much because, you know, if somebody has a low office need, they may just work remote or use a shared workspace or something like that. And so we're starting to see some interest in converting those office spaces to residential uses. And this AB 507 directs us to essentially streamline that process and actually says that we cannot make any adaptive reuse project go through a planning process. It has to just be building permits. So that is a pretty substantial change. But again, just kind of through that theme of trying to get the city out of the way and let these projects just go from idea to opening and getting people reusing the building for something different. Kind of along those accelerated building permit review, there's the same thing for someone wanting to build a new restaurant or make improvements to an existing restaurant building. It has that same, those same timelines associated with the city needing to be responsive, or it's automatically approved. So just another hoop that we have to make sure we're jumping through. But in this case, not for residential units, but for restaurants.
Why would that be included as part of the housing?
So we just wanted to show you, this is a summary of a lot of the legislation that's passed that directly affects what we do. And so the idea is if, we get multiple building permits in for all these different things, we have X number of resources, so just, it affects how we do our job, which.
Inadvertently, it could affect.
Exactly, yeah. It's also just kind of an interesting thing that some projects that may before going to the planning commission may not anymore. Yeah.
Thank you.
AB 1308, I believe is the next one, yeah. It again just has timelines for building inspections, so not just the plan review process, but then also how fast we get out there and do the inspections. Again, City of Cotati has no problems meeting any of the timelines that they've included, but apparently some cities have, and so the state thought it was important to pass some laws directing us to jump through those hoops. AB 130 and 131, these are kind of interesting in that they streamline the CEQA analysis, and so some of the concerns over, the timelines required to get projects through the process are related to the environmental analysis, and so they've passed some new CEQA streamlining, and this is a pretty substantial change, and so I would encourage the commission to read those. Basically, projects that are on 20 acres or less and have a few other specific elements are going to now be able to just be a streamlined review. It doesn't mean impacts won't be addressed, but rather than having to do a full study of all the impacts, they can just address their limited things that are known to be impacted and then go on and get to the decision-making process. So it should actually speed up the process. There's a lot of other bills in the staff report. I would encourage the commission to look at those, and we're happy to talk about them if the commission has any questions at a later time. But I did want to highlight one other change, and that's AB 343. So that's expanded privacy protections for elected officials, and that also passes on to appointed officials such as the Planning Commission. And so what this does is it stops the city from having to disclose specific information related to elected or appointed officials, and specifically it's your personal information. So addresses, phone numbers, all of those things are not now required to be given out to the public. So it's in response to, I think, some of the changes in tone that we've had with some of the political discourse. And so that law was passed, and it does protect our elected and appointed officials. And so I wanted to highlight that one as well. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Pema.
Thank you, Noah. Next slide, please. So just as a brief summary of the housing APR report, the Table D is the most important part. It really summarizes the housing element and how the city of Cotati is trying its best to, capture and do the best for different housing element policies that were adopted in 2023. Program 1.3 just highlights nonprofit agency coordination. So we recently had the housing fair. We collaborated with different agencies such as Legal Aid, Sonoma County, and other agencies just to give more housing resources to the community members, as well as provide more information about different housing affordabilities that were in City of Cotati as well. Program 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and so on really focuses on streamlining and supporting and promoting housing opportunities. So City of Cotati has entitled multiple projects throughout the years, more than doubling the allocated RHNA that have been assigned to us. Construction, like Noah said, are anticipated in 2026. And the city continues to expand supportive housing policy, such as the TOC upzoning as well, for more future housing sites and increased density as well. Program 2.6, 4.2, 4.3 are just anti-displacement and discrimination and cultural sensitivity. So City of Cotati has worked with, like I said, Legal Aid of Sonoma County for tenant discrimination issues, and has partnered with Sonoma County Keeping People House pilot program that prevents homelessness throughout the county by uniting social services to provide rental service and essential legal service to the people of the community as well. So I just wanted to highlight all these. Program 5.1 is the annual report, so APR, that I am currently presenting right now, and this is every year. That's due on April 1st. So yeah, that really concludes this slide. Next slide, please. So it is recommended by the Community Development Department that the Planning Commission review and accept the Housing Element Annual Progress Report.
Thank you so much, Pema. I'll open it up to the commissioners for any questions or comments.
I just, Noah, want to thank you for pointing out that we have a lot of projects out there approved. I mean, if you look at just 4 of them, I think it's close to 450 housing units. It disturbs me that I read online someone condemning the city for spending money on these policies and not building houses, and that's putting out false information to the community, because we look at a project, we examine it, we make changes. From us, it goes to the city council. They go through the same process to approve what we believe is a good project for our community. That's what we do. We don't build houses. It's up to the developers to build the houses. As we know, I believe 1, maybe 2 of our approved projects, right after they're approved, that developer sold them to another developer. Where I would love to be able to force a developer to, okay, you got your project approved, let's start construction, that would be fabulous, but that's not our job. So for someone to put online that we're wasting, taxpayers' dollars with these policies and not building any houses is false information, and that really bothers me when I see people put that stuff out, don't put out the true information.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, so question, can you remind me, what's the ramifications if we don't meet our RENA numbers?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the state has been regularly changing the kind of the penalties associated with not meeting RENA, but right now we're subject to, and I can't keep it straight, whether it's builder's remedy, which is a part of the Housing Accountability Act, or SB 35, which is a state law, but both of them essentially allow projects that may not comply with zoning to go straight to, or to go through the process anyway, and may not even need city approval from the planning commission or the city council in order to go through. I think it's
builder's remedy.
Yeah, but also I think SB 35 allows that as well. And so what I'm not sure is the penalty for not complying with RENA one, the other, or both?
Gotcha.
And it could be both.
But don't they look at what we've approved? How,
So they are asking for that, so that's a good question. So I think it's worth noting the APR, so this report that we have to submit has gotten more and more robust. So 10 years ago, when there was kind of less pressure to get housing built, this report looked very different, and it was much less information, and it was much less critical. The state, as they've ramped up their pressure and the goal of trying to get more housing built, has realized that all of us as cities have to provide them a lot of information every year, and so they're ramping up all the information we have to put into this. And there are categories that ask us, how many projects have you approved? And so if we got into a situation where HCD or even the Attorney General was trying to come after us for not doing our part, so to speak, I think we would have a very good story to tell about the things that Commissioner or Vice Chair Gilardi just pointed out, and also that we've documented that every year to them.
and is builder's remedy a prescription drug?
Well, I didn't read the full article, but I remember, I did read an article a while back, and then I saw another headline recently, the city of Huntington Beach, I think, the Attorney General went after them for not meeting their RENA.
That's correct.
Yeah, their RENA compliance.
Yeah, wasn't the project behind downtown a builder's remedy project in Cotati?
The SB 35.
SB 35, okay. Just for my own personal reference, can you maybe give me a quick distinction, like what the difference is between those two?
Yeah, and so I'd have to do some research. It's been, because they were both passed a fair amount of time ago, but SB 35 essentially says, and again, I'm going from memory, but if you're not meeting your RENA, we will let projects come in and not have to follow your rules
Right.
to help them get built. With the idea or the mentality that for some reason houses aren't getting built in your city, maybe it's because your rules are not facilitating it. Builder's Remedy essentially does the same thing but uses a different law. There's this law called the Housing Accountability Act. It's been on the books since the 80s, maybe even the 70s. And they've been making kind of minor changes to it, and then also, frankly, just rereading it and realize all the tools that are in it, and then that's being elevated to being used in Builder's Remedy is one of those.
Okay, I was confusing those two.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions before we go to public comment? No. Carla, do we have any public comment on Zoom?
Speaking to our Zoom attendees, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand icon. And Chair Long, that will end Zoom public comment.
Thank you, Carla. Any public comment from the in-person attendees? No, thank you. All right, we don't have to make a motion on this, so we,
No, I would just encourage the commission to take the time to read Table D. So Table D is a summary of all the things we've been doing to implement all the housing element programs. And so as Pema identified, when we started doing this housing element and adopted it in 23, but there's what's called a housing needs assessment. And we really did a lot of kind of ground truthing with the community to hear what the needs for housing are. And then we created these programs working with the state to try to address the housing challenges that our residents are facing based on all the input we got. And Table D is a summary of that. So separate from the RENA, actually, how many units are you building? And this gets to Commissioner Berman's question. We can really talk about how much effort and progress we've made towards implementing all of these. And I could say we implemented almost every program we adopted in 2023, just 3 years later in this 8-year cycle. So we are doing excellent work. That's because our staff is so good, and the commission and the council have prioritized housing and really pushed us to get these things accomplished. And so Table D is worth your time to read, and we can give you a different version if you'd like, because the font is pretty challenging.
Magnifying glass? Yeah, very small. I mean, is this in the packet, is this included in the packet that's published online?
It is.
Okay,
yeah, you can zoom in on it.
okay, yeah.
All right, thank you, Pema, for your presentation. And I think we have one more on the agenda, item C.
Yeah, so 8C is similar, but this is a report that we're now required to submit on our progress in implementing our general plan. And so Cotati was lucky that we had a implementation section of the general plan, and so it identified all the policies, who was responsible for doing it, and then had a table so you could talk about how you've been working to implement it. And so when the state passed this requirement, which was just a couple years ago, we kind of took that implementation table and elevated it into the realm of public presentations, and I've been doing it along with the housing APR. And planning technician, Ms. Sherpa, is also lead staff on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Noah. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, like Noah said before, general plan, like I said, is the city vision for the future and really provides a framework for decision making. So there are generally required 7 elements, including housing element, but these are required by the state since 2019, so pretty recent. But annual progress report, such as the housing element, has been required by the state for many years, but this is kind of recent. So currently, right now, we have the most recent general plan that was adopted by the city of Cotati in 2015. General housing APR, like I said before, details the implementation of general plan and the progress towards the goal. APR is due annually to the state of California by April 1st, which is the same deadline as the housing APR as well. Next slide, please. So elements of the general plan usually include circulation, community health and wellness, and land use, noise, open space, safety, except for housing, which is reported separately. Like Noah said, each has its own goal, objective, policy, action for each element, and these are all compiled in implementation plan, and that is a format for the APR presentation as well, and APR reporting. CD gathers implementation update from different departments within the city, such as city department and rec as well. Next slide, please. Actions are either individual department or a combination of efforts from different departments. So if you see on the attached APR reporting, you can see there are different assigned action items for different department as well, and some of them are a combination of different departments that have been assigned the same action items. Some of the action items can be outdated. Some of them might have been completed. Some of them can also be not yet started by the city because those things might be beyond the city's control as well. There are also priority and status identified in the APR, and it also includes notes on specific action that the city took on 2025. Next slide, please. It is recommended by the Community Development Department that Planning Commission review and accept the general APR report. Thank you.
Thank you, Pema. We'll open it up to the commission for any questions or comments.
No, I remember sometime back you had commented that you can do some changes along the way in the general plan before it triggers redoing the whole thing.
That's correct.
And this was 2015, this one was adopted, so when is the next one? Because I know that's a huge process and takes a great deal of staff time to redo a general plan.
That's correct. So Community Development Department actually put that into our recommended work plan for the city council for this year, starting last year. But the primary limitation is funding. It's anticipated to cost about $1 million. And so, the city budget is only between 10 and 11 million, so that would be 10% of the entire budget of the city in one annual year. So it's a big challenge to be able to cover that cost, in addition to all the staff resources that it would take, but we would definitely hire a consultant. That being said, a lot's changed since 2015. We're looking at options to try to fund it, different ways. Cotati has used Sonoma State students in the past to do a general plan update. That was, I think, in the 90s, maybe before that. But so we're looking at kind of all options. And one thing that the city council, working with the city manager, did is create a general plan impact fee. And so new development now pays a chunk of money into an account for us to fund the future general plan update. So we are collecting fees from these developers to help offset some of the costs, but we don't know when we're going to be able to budget for that. But CD will be pushing to do it every year until we get it done.
What do those costs entail? Like, why is it $1 million to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, it's a significant amount of community outreach and engagement. So the entire point of doing this, it's a blueprint, a constitution for the city moving forward to address challenges that we're facing. The only way you really know those is by ground truthing those questions with the community members. The other is the CEQA analysis. So we would be likely, changing the zoning district on a number of parcels, allowing more residential uses or different uses in different parts of the city. So then we would have to plan for how we're going to run sewer lines to them, water lines to them. What's the traffic patterns going to be? What new roads need to be built? I mean, it's a comprehensive analysis. How much parkland we need to build, where are we going to build that, all of those things. And so when you make a decision as a city to define those questions, you also have to analyze the environmental impacts of them. So it's a massive EIR, environmental impact report, that gets done. That alone would probably be, at least $250,000 to $500,000 just for the environmental analysis.
Because we hire consultants for that, or does staff?
Absolutely, no,
Okay.
it's all consultant driven.
Okay.
A lot of expertise.
Got it.
I read every bit of this, and let me just say that the deli is Kazi, Cozzy, not cozy, Kazi. They don't have a lot of fresh food in there. And that, I don't see how they could, actually. I was impressed. They didn't have a lot of hard liquor. They're playing records. They have records. They have a turntable and records that they play. It was impressive. Their wine and beer was local, well thought, and the sandwich was good. What they have in there is, it makes sense for who they are. And the fellow was very kind. Anyway, it's Kazi. And one thing that concerned me when I was reading this was, hold please, working with the Highway Patrol on page 177, working with the Highway Patrol to actively enforce the California Vehicle Code as it relates to adequate vehicle mufflers, modified exhaust system, and car stereos. Outside my house, a couple months ago, I heard a pullover. And I thought, well, that's interesting. When Cotati pulls somebody over, there's a whoop, whoop, but pull over. So I was drawn to outside to see who was this. It was the Highway Patrol. So I stood across the street and watched as they tormented, in my account, a person of color, had them come out of their car and put them through the ringer to try to figure out if they were drunk or not. And then this person gets back in his car and drives off. California Highway Patrol is being used as a testing ground to check people, and they're going after homeless people for training purposes. And to me, this was, I don't understand it. And to happen right on Old Redwood Highway, right in downtown, it was very concerning. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about Highway Patrol having any jurisdiction in our town. And I just want to bring it up, and I guess I can ask the police chief to talk to me. I don't know what we do about that.
Yeah, I don't have a response. It is a documented action from 2015. That's one of the challenges is, when you adopt a general plan, it becomes a snapshot in time, even though it's based on all the input that you did, and it's providing direction into the future. At that point, apparently there was noise concerns from vehicles, and then we do have 2 highways running through the community, so I would imagine that's probably some of the coordination issues, is because they have jurisdiction on the highways. But yeah, if you want details specifically as to how we would get, either make a change or how we interact or what jurisdiction they have, I would refer you to the police department.
Question on the status column. Some of them don't have a check mark in complete or in progress. Some of them have both boxes checked. Should it be one or the other? Is that a typo or is that by design? Well,
so that's a good question. So one thing, this is completed by 3 or 4 different departments, and so everybody might have been doing it their own way. But the other is, I think some of them, just by the nature of how it's written, it's kind of a both, right? Because some of the policies or actions kind of direct multiple things. And then lastly, I will say the formatting was a bit tough, where when we went from the manipulatable document to the PDF, some of the X's kind of got a little bit odd. So it could be that there was a mistake. And I can run those down if you have a specific question, but it could have been a format issue.
Yeah, there were so many of them that I was like, maybe it's supposed to be like that. and when you read the comments, it'll say either, you know, ongoing or maybe not started. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But some of them don't have comments that support it. So that was just kind of my question, was like, should it be one box checked or the other, or is that?
I kind of looked at it as the concept was completed, but it's an ongoing, it's something we always have to keep working on. That's the way, when I saw the 2 boxes checked, that's how it registered with me.
Any other questions at this time? Commission? No? So even when things get completed, though, we keep them in the general plan? We don't start like removing things to simplify it, or?
Yeah, so we haven't, so this, you know, it was interesting, when I was hired, 6 years ago, this was kind of just on the shelf, for lack of a better term, and so then we pulled it out as the state has said, hey, you need to do these reports, and we started looking at it, we're like, well, we have a perfect tool, and by the way, it's good for us to check in and remind ourselves of the things we committed to, and so we've been using this to direct our work plans with the city council and prioritize things, but it's a good question of like, how do you kind of cross things off the list? And so this is a static list because it lives in the general plan and was adopted as a part of the general plan. I've worked with general plans that don't have an implementation chapter, and that's similarly challenging, but also in a different way. And so I've been thinking about, as we get to be able to do a general plan update, how will we address implementation? I don't have answers for it, but I'm not sure that this format is the best, but that's something that we would talk about with the commission and the community as we went to update the next plan.
Okay. So there's not a mechanism to kind of continually be updating the general plan?
So, no, so there is, so the state law directs cities, and it creates a structure, and it says you can update your general plan 4 times a year. It's not uncommon for, you know, private applicants to submit general plan amendments to make changes. Maybe their property's commercial, they want it to be residential, vice versa. It's in one commercial district, they want it to be a different one. That's a very typical thing, just that we haven't had a lot of those applications in Cotati. And so we're allowed to update the general plan as on a regular basis per state law. And then it's also not uncommon for cities to update their general plan. If maybe new policies need to get added, changes need to be made. But we just haven't had that direction from the council. We haven't run into something that's that much of a conflict. And then I would say we've just been really focused on the housing element and that type of aspect. And so we have had some conversations about maybe needing to address certain things, but it hasn't risen to the level of getting in the work plan.
Okay.
I do have a question, just kind of sitting here got me thinking about, you know, the spill in Clear Lake with the sewer, and I read an article that said they didn't have a capital improvement plan in place for their sewer system. Just to clarify, we have something like that, right? I know it's not referenced in here, but like.
Absolutely.
Or is it?
It's referenced, yeah.
I mean,
There is references
okay.
to the CIP, is what we call it, CIP.
Oh,
And
okay.
then that actually comes to the commission every year for conformance with the general plan. So the planning commission gets presented the list of capital projects that are proposed for the next fiscal year. And our job as the planning body of the city is to look at it to make sure it's implementing the goals of the general plan.
Okay. So
But
we're
yeah,
covered
that is a big, I mean, I'm shocked that they wouldn't have a CIP.
I read that too. I was like, wow, okay. Well, let's make sure, at least we have one. That's a tragedy what's happening up there. That sounds awful. I feel so bad for those people. Another question, I noticed on page 123, kind of along those same veins, talking about recycled water. And it says, not started, recycled water is not feasible for the foreseeable future. Can you talk a little bit about why that may be?
I think it's just the infrastructure cost of running, not only creating the recycled water, you know, the plant to recycle the water, but the way Cotati deals with our wastewater is and many of the communities on the Santa Rosa Plain is there's the plant out on Llano. And so We pipe all of our wastewater, sewer to that plant. It gets treated. And then there's some recycled water pipes. So any purple pipe you ever see, sometimes you see that, that's recycled water. But there's none that goes anywhere near Cotati.
Oh, okay.
So we would have to run a pipeline to get it to us, have the pumps, tanks, infrastructure needed to create the water pressure, and then distribute it. And traditional users of recycled water are agriculture, recreation, and industrial uses.
Business parks and stuff, yeah, not,
So we just don't have a lot of that type of development to
okay.
kind of cover the cost. So if somebody came in and wanted to build a big golf course or a big business park, that may motivate that, but just we just don't have that even property zoned for that.
Okay, that makes sense. So the cost benefit analysis there doesn't really
Correct.
tie out, because I know in Roanoke Park, they use recycled water and like all the new development, the parks and stuff, so, thanks for clarifying that.
And with regard to water, we're using less and less water. And because we're using less and less water, we're being charged more for water.
That is correct.
I did read that in the sewer section, that capacity is no longer an issue because we're using so much less water, and that was nice to read.
Yeah, I mean, every year we are getting more efficient, right? Because people are removing their lawns.
Yeah.
You get a new appliance, it's like orders of magnitude more efficient with the amount of water it's using. But to Ms. Berman's point, the water agency, Sonoma Water, they call themselves now, is who provides our water. And they have all this infrastructure that they've built and to provide water to everyone. And, you know, the price is based on all the costs to maintain all of that and build it and make sure it all comes to our taps when we turn it on. And as we use less, the price of each bit that they need to get to cover all those costs goes up.
And who was in the creek cleaning up the creek? Was it Sonoma Water that was in
Likely,
there?
they have jurisdiction over a big portion of the Laguna Channel. That's theirs.
Well, so there's this huge piece of garbage that they could have picked up. It's a massage table. Oh, boy. It's sitting right there. They were right there. They had a truck and they just left it there. And that's my problem with the folks who come into the creek. They do a lot of cutting, but they don't do a lot of picking up of trash that they're right next to. So I'm just lodging my concern about a massage table that's next to the Hancock Bridge. And maybe.
If you could, it would be best if you could send me an email and I could forward it to them.
Okay, great.
Any other questions from the commission? No? Any questions from the public? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Adrian Lobby. I'm resident of Cotati. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the CHP incidents that's going on, mostly because it's so outrageous to me, and I'm just telling everybody. So here I am. What's happened is the local-ish CHP people have gotten a grant to train people from the area, all over California, Idaho, I don't know what other states are coming, and they train officers in a kind of advanced course. We're going to train you so you can go home and train other people, and it's about being able to assess people for alcoholism or alcohol, sobriety. But what they're doing is when the morning of these trainings, I think they're a 3-day training, they go out to the local homeless camps up on the Joe Rodota Trail and pick up people to be the guinea pigs. And they tell them, you can come with us or you can get a citation, you can go to jail. Now, they take them to the Roanoke Park substation, which is right in our area, and they do a lot of eye tests, they take piece of hair, walk a straight line, a lot of the things that you might know, but with this parade of officers coming through to watch them go through their paces. And What else do I want to say about this? This is just, oh, we did do a little research. I work with a homeless group, and we went and talked to the people at the Roanoke Park substation, and they contended that this was voluntary. This is not voluntary. Nobody is going to sign up to say, you know, sure, I'll go be the guinea pig for a bunch of CHP officers, and you could, I'll pretend to be drunk so you can do your training exercise. And of course, we want to know, why aren't they picking people from the outside the wineries? We just want to know that question. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Carla, do we have any Zoom attendees that would like to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair Long. Kimberlyn, you have the floor.
Hi, Kimberlyn Moffitt, Cotati resident. Nice to see all of you. I'm hanging out in San Mateo. But a couple of quick questions. One, wondering what the update is for sidewalk projects, specifically on Valparaiso. Two, looking at the reuniting La Plaza, I noticed that it's part of the 2021 priority projects, and it currently just says we're pursuing funding. Just kind of curious where that is on the project pipeline and if that's still something that the city is considering. Also curious about the safe routes to school and if any coordination has happened with Cotati Roanoke Park, and if it just sort of says ongoing, but no safe route to school plan has been set. And then also, Sunny does pronounce it the Cozy Market, even though it is pronounced C-O-Z-Z-I, it's pronounced Cozy. So hence the confusion with the spelling and the pronunciation, but I agree with Shelley, it is a fabulous little market. I also wanted to just thank staff for all of the reports. You know, it's a lot of work to do a bunch of reports during reporting season, and y'all always do an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Any other public comment on Zoom?
That will end public comment, Chair Long.
Thank you, Carla. Noah, maybe you would like to address some of those?
Sure, yeah. I don't have the most up-to-date information because it was, so the Valparaiso sidewalk was included in the sidewalk gap closure project. However, it's the most expensive section and we had a budget shortfall, and so that was taken out. So it's a pending project, but I'm not sure where it is in the kind of cycle of projects. I just know it's the most expensive section from the gap closure project. And La Plaza reunification is in the CIP, but I think it's in year 5 today, like as of today. So as we update the CIP list for projects, which will happen this spring, I believe, we can get an update specifically as to where it is, if it's still in year 5, and you know, the likelihood of funding and when we're going to start talking about the design. But it is still active and it's on the list. And then safe routes to school. Yeah, we have no safe routes to school contact with the school district, is my understanding. And so we don't have a person to engage with to kind of have them plan out the safe route to school. But we have been looking, and the commission's aware of this, with a lot of the Vision Zero, the local road safety plan, and then the active transportation plan. We spent a lot of time over the last couple of years looking at safe ways to get people around in our streets, including bicycle and pedestrian transportation. But currently we are lacking a coordinated person on safe routes to school with the school district, is my understanding.
Thank you, Director Hausch. I'll open back up to the commission for any more comments.
Yeah, for Valparaiso, that's a really narrow street already, and it's like you've got homes right up to it. So are we using like eminent domain to take sidewalk space, or like where are we going to build it?
So the right-of-way is actually much wider than the pavement.
Oh, okay.
So there would be a frontage in front of those homes, is the design.
Okay.
The uphill section is even more challenging, but so it would change their frontage, but the width is adequate.
Okay.
The width of the right-of-way that's owned by the city, not private property, is
Okay,
adequate.
so their property line doesn't extend all the way up to the street?
Correct,
Okay, that
correct.
makes sense. So I was like, I can barely drive on that street. It's so narrow.
And you take your life in your hands when you walk on it.
Yeah.
Which I did with the dog, and it is dangerous.
Yeah, I walk on it every day with my little
Especially when
kids.
the turkeys are out walking too.
All right. Well, I don't think there's any other comments at this time, so thank you, Pema, for the presentation. Director Hausch. Thank you. And we will pull up the agenda. Sorry. Reports by staff.
Just department report, just briefly, I just want to highlight, the climate fair is March 28th, so the second annual, and then our department staff has been working hard to get that set. It will be at the depot again, Saturday, 10 to 2. Lots of great activities. It's more people than last year as far as vendors and participants. There's a fix-it fair, there's a clothing swap, a lot of really, really cool ways that you can reduce your carbon footprint, try to improve your sustainability in your life. And so come on out. We will have all of the CD staff there. We are looking for volunteers. If anybody is looking for an opportunity to volunteer, they can reach out to me or Autumn Bus on our staff. And then the housing fair, we're starting our first, so that's an annual requirement in the housing report, as you guys, housing element, as you guys saw. And we're starting to plan on the topic to focus on. It's in September. We're going to have a meeting either this week or next. Next week, I believe, to start coordinating. We partner with the library and the city of Rohnert Park. We've done it at the library the past 2 years. First year, we focused on connecting people experiencing homelessness with resources to try to get them into housing. Last year, we focused on first-time homeowners resources, so people who are interested in trying to figure out ways to buy homes. So if the commissioners has any input on some pressing housing needs that they feel like we can include in this year's housing fair, send me an email, call me, I'm happy to talk about it. We're starting to make plans. One challenge is that the library is going to be under construction or under renovation from, I think, September through, like August through the, all the way through the new year. So that will not be our venue. So we are likely to pivot to the Rohnert Park Community Center for our housing fair. But that's where that's the main topic of conversation at our first meeting. But again, if you know there's pressing housing issues that you feel like a seminar or a workshop could help address or speak to, then please reach out. We'd be happy to try to see what we can do to provide resources for that specific topic. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Noah. Just a quick question. I read something about, I think it was the city of Sebastopol doing something with ADUs, right, where they could separate parcels. Is that something that the city of Cotati is looking at? And if so, how might that impact?
Yeah, so the state passed a law that allows cities to create a process where folks can essentially subdivide their ADUs and allow them to be for sale, separate from the main home. It's a voluntary process. We have not taken the opportunity to opt into that, create an ordinance. If the council were to direct that, we could put that into our work plan. But yeah, as of this time, we are not working on that ordinance. I think Sebastopol is the only city in the county who has. It's pretty challenging. Some of the things that they did, I think, could be done to make it a little easier. But the main thing is, how do you deal with the on-site infrastructure? So the state law allows you to share sewer lines and water lines, driveways. So then you have to, if it's jointly owned, then you have to have a way to jointly manage that. And Sebastopol's ordinance identifies an HOA. From my standpoint, an HOA for 2 units that has to go through the State Department of Real Estate, and an attorney would have to be involved in drafting it, likely just creates a pretty challenging kind of cost,
A lot
frankly.
of overhead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's other ways to deal with that. There's what's called maintenance agreements where the 2 people who own it just agree, and it's just specified like an easement. So there's ways to do it in a more streamlined, but because it's so new, I think they just, they took their approach, and if it's something that the city is interested in us pursuing, we can create that. I know the county is very apprehensive about it, mainly because they're just seeing that it would, create this proliferation of ADUs in very rural areas that aren't served easily by fire, and septic issues created by, it just, from the county's perspective, it gets infinitely more complicated.
Okay.
Because you can't just connect a water line and a sewer line and deal with that. You have to have it all managed on site, so.
Okay. Thank you. Reports from the commission? No? All right, and then I will adjourn at 7:30.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Totally.